Hey guys, welcome to part 6, and in this video we're going to finish the game class, but the first thing we're going to do is create some classes within our game.java file that's going to let us throw some exceptions. So the first class we're going to make is an invalid player turn exception. So do that, and this extends exception, and then we're going to make a string player ID. And then we're going to give it a constructor that takes a message and a player ID, and then message, just like that. That's all it does, and then we're just going to give it one method called getPid. It's going to return the player ID. Alright, next class we're going to make is an invalid color submission. So we're going to throw this exception anytime that someone submits a color that isn't a valid color. So invalid color submission. This also extends exception. We're going to make a private Uno card enumeration value for the expected color and the actual color. Now we're going to do the constructor. It's going to take a message, the actual, and the expected. That expected equals expected. Alright. And now the last class we're going to make is invalid values. So invalid value submission exception. This also extends this exception, and we can actually just copy and paste this. Change this to value, change this to value, and then change these to value. And yeah, so that finishes that up. So now we're going to go back into our game class and write the last method for this class. It is the longest method, and it also does the majority of the work for the game. So this is going to be our submit player card method. And it's going to take player ID, an Uno card, and also the declared color. So first thing, and this is going to throw some exceptions. It's going to throw the classes that we just made. So the invalid color submission, invalid value submission, and invalid player turn exception. So we got that done. We're going to check to make sure the correct player's turn, and then we're going to create an array list of Uno cards. called the player hand. That is going to be, and we're just going to get the actual player's hand from the method that we created earlier. And then we're going to say if the valid card, if the card played is not a valid card, that's all this line means. So like if somebody plays blue 3 when it's like a red 1, so if it's not a valid card, first we're going to check to see if the card color is a wild card. So like if the current card is a red 1, technically a wild card doesn't match the color of the number, but we know that you can use a wild card on any card in the Uno game. So we're just going to check to see if it is a wild card. And then we're going to say if it is, make the valid color equal to that card's color. So now the current color is going to be wild. And then the next thing we're going to do is if the card's color is not the valid color. Alright, so color we're going to create a JLabel, message equals, I'm going to say invalid player move expected color with the valid color but got color and then the actual color that we got. So card.getColor. We're going to set the font of the message to a new font. Make it Arial. Make it bold. And we'll set it to 48. And then we're going to create a JOption pane to show the message. We do that by show message dialog, make that null, and that is going to be message. So here we go, and then we're going to throw a new invalid color submission exception. So the message is just going to say same thing as this. Oh, okay, actually that's fine. We can just leave that like that. And yeah, we're good there. Next thing we're going to do is say else if card.value is not equal to a valid value, then we are going to do the same thing. We're going to throw this exception, except we're just going to change this to value. And just leave that the same, I believe. Yep. Actually, I think we also have to create the message. We'll just say message 2. You can just copy this. Change this to message 2. message2.font. And make that message2. Change color to value. Change this to value. And then change this to value. So now that that's done, we're going to remove the card from the hand. We are going to check if there's an empty hand. So if the current player has an empty hand, you can do that by writing that. Okay, so if they have the empty hand, then we're going to say, we're going to write a J label. You can just copy and paste this J label. And then we are going to say something like the current player is 1. So we can do that by saying this dot player IDs current player won the game, and thank you for playing. And then you just display the message, and then you're going to exit from the system. 0. The next thing we're going to do is we have to set the valid color equal to the current card color, and then the valid value equal to the card's current value. And then we're going to add the card to the stockpile once it's been played. I'm going to say if the game direction is false, we're going to make sure that the current player is set correctly, and we can do that by doing current player +1 and then modding it by the player IDs .length. And then else if the game direction is true, you can do it by doing the same thing. Copy and paste this. And I believe we're just subtracting 1. And then we're going to say if the current player is -1, so actually within here, then the current player equals the player IDs .length. I don't know what happened there. -1. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is check if the card color is wild. So do this by saying card.getColor is equal to color.wild. Then say the valid color is equal to the declared color. Set the declared color to be the valid color. So the next thing we're going to do is say if the card.value is equal to Uno card.value, if it's a draw 2, we're going to say the player ID is equal to the player IDs current player, going to give that player, just get the player hand, and then add a draw card. So, and then we're just going to do the same thing again. So we can just copy and paste this. So what this does is we set the player ID to the current player, and then we're going to draw 2 cards to the current player, and that is going to give that player 2 cards. So it won't be the current player, but it'll be the next player. So that's all you're gonna have to do for that. And then we can also write a message that says JLabel, so that player drew 2 cards. So for the next method, we can pretty much just copy and paste this method, and this is going to be if the value is a wild 4, and then you're going to copy and paste this because they're going to draw 4 cards. Change this to 4 cards, and it's going to finish that method. The next thing we're going to do is create our, we're going to check to see if the card value is a skip card. So get the value, it's Uno card, value dot skip, create a JLabel for the message, and then we'll say player IDs, get the current player, and then we'll say they were skipped, and then we will set the font, new font, Arial, bold, 48, and then we're going to show the message with the option pane that we've been doing previously. Null message. Alright. And the next part of this if block is that we're going to create another message inside, or another if statement. We're going to say if the game direction is equal to false, then we need to set the current player to what the current player needs to be set to. So use the same algorithm as before, add 1 and mod by player IDs.length. And then else if it's true, and the current player will be equal to the current player minus 1 divided by the player IDs.length. Within this, we're going to check to see if the current player is set to 1, because from this, it could be set to -1, because when we subtract 1 and mod by a certain number, it's going to stay negative. So we're just going to check to see if current player is -1, my current player is equal to player IDs.length minus 1. And now the final thing that we need to check for is if the card's value is a reverse card. So if it is a reverse card, we're going to use this Just copy and paste it. And we're going to say this player change the game direction, and then we can just change this to that, and then this one is going to have the most complicated logic. So pretty much all we're going to do is do the same thing we've done previously one time, which was use an XOR true, and this is just going to flip the game direction. This line of code is just going to flip the game direction every time, and we don't need any branching or temporary variables to do that. So we're going to say if the game direction is equal to true, and that represents it going either clockwise or counterclockwise, or forward and backwards, something like that. So we just wanted to flip it using this. So we're saying, you know, if it's going clockwise, it doesn't really matter which way it's going, but if it's going one way, so if it's true, we're going to set the current player equal to the current player minus 2, mod it by the player IDs dot length, and then we're going to say if the current player is equal to -1, set the current player equal to player IDs dot length -1, and then we can just copy and paste this. Since we're subtracting by 2 this time, we need to check if it became -2, and if it did, change that to -2 and that to -2. Last thing we're going to do here, and then if the game direction is false, so if it's going the other way, the current player is going to equal the current player plus 2 modded by the player IDs dot length. Just gonna make sure these brackets are lining up. Alright, yeah. So that is going to conclude that method, and that is also going to conclude the game class. So that's going to conclude this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.